family back there. I consider myself to be a good researcher. And even when I was sitting with her, I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. But also listening to some of the unfortunately hard stories of athletes in their NIL deals and contracts and not reading them, I felt like this would be some information not only players need to know because they have to live it, especially in this NIL world, but what parents need to know too, because sometimes parents got to be an advocate for their child. So I asked her, could she do this same presentation again and let, open it up and invite some of the athletes because we all know that Mobile does have great athletes here that can have the potential to go anywhere. So she agreed to do this for me and she's doing it for free. So that speaks volumes of you have an attorney stopping what they're doing and talking to you all about this. So let me start by saying this. This is not, I don't want y'all to feel like this is a sales presentation. Although she is an NIL, I say agent slash attorney. Um, if you decide that you like her, you want to go with her, but this is not a no hold barred thing. It's just like if you love it, get the knowledge, get the information, and take it anywhere that you go. So, and she has some cards up there in case you have any follow-up questions. Because if you're like me as well, I go home and say, I should have thought about that, and I didn't. Now I want to have a question for that. So I'm gonna turn it over to Miss Katrina. I'm gonna let her introduce herself, and then she can get started.
So hi everybody, my name is Amory Katrina. I really started this first time as training. I'm also a collegiate athlete, but my foundation of growing up, I'm the daughter of a football coach. My father has been a collegiate football coach for 38 years now, at age more, but he's been a coach for a really, really long time. I've grown up and grew up with players that, then it was they were making the NFL and they got taken advantage of by agents. Coaches get taken advantage of by agents all the time. And now in NIL, you all are 18, 19 years old, and you're given full-on employee contracts. And the university and the collective have an Army full of training representative. So my hope today is just in this hour and a half, to give you a base knowledge to empower you, be able to advocate for yourself and protect yourself. Like Dr. Robertson said, I do not care if you want to work with me or not. My main goal is to educate you all, hopefully become leaders in your community and have the knowledge to not be taken advantage of. This NIL world is crazy. It's literally changing every single day. And I think you'll walk away today with some things you didn't know before and some things to look out for, and that'll help you in the long run. Just a brief background, after college, I went to law school at Gonzaga. I got a 75% scholarship. I'm telling you that because I went straight from being a student athlete to law school. All my admissions essays were about sports and what I learned through sports. Sports are so powerful and amazing, and so I know you all know that. But I went to law school at Gonzaga, and then I was an assistant attorney general for Washington State. I represented the Department of Families and Juvenile Education. I represented Eastern Washington State Hospital, and then I also worked with the public universities and trying to help them create their NIL stuff. So that's a little bit about me. Here are some places that I've lived, places that my dad coached at. My brother's a coach. He's a coach at Louisville. He's my twin. My husband is a strength coach in college. Dad's the OC at South Alabama right now, and my uncle is the OC at Arkansas. My cousins are all over the place. Missouri State, Wyoming. I've lived through basically all different SEC, Big Ten, NFL, everything. So I just kind of grown up like that, and that's why I'm super passionate, and hopefully you guys will also be. Okay, so my whole purpose of this next slide, you guys got a chart, and I also started this. So when I was thinking on what school to go to college to, my dad literally sat in his office on his whiteboard and made this exact chart. Now, my purpose for showing you this is I don't NIL is amazing, but I don't think that should be the only reason you go to the school you're going to. It's super important and it changes lives, but generational wealth and it's very rare to stand in a room where a lot of you have potential to make the NFL. In order to do that, you need to go to the right place. You need to go to the place where the coaches love you, they care about you, they're going to make you better. And also, NIL money is directly related to this. So there's a bunch of different pathways essentially to making a lot of money in NIL. Now, we have the kids in high school that are less than the 2% that have 4 or 5 stars, and you guys are going to be offered probably 6 figures coming out of college. Now, that doubles and triples once you play, okay? So as freshmen and you're coming in, you're not getting $1 million deals. I think you guys know that. I think you're well aware of that. Different paths. Kids go to D2. They go to group of 5 schools, some else schools. They, they kick butt. They're all Americans, and they go make a shit ton of money. Okay? So there's not one path to the most amount of money. That's why if anything you walk away from this, what is the best fit for you? Where are you going to play? Like Jacob, we talked about it. Like when he goes to Missouri this weekend, he's going to ask a question. He's going to say, I'm sure he did his research, and he knows that there are 3 down and 4 down from on defense. He knows that there are 3 down teams. Do they see him as an outside linebacker, or do they see him in the boundary of the field? If there are 4 down teams, on first and second down, do they see him as a boundary inside linebacker, or a field nickel Sam? And how are they going to utilize him on third down as a pass rusher? Now, this changes, and as a true freshman, you might have a select package that he fits into, and that grows over time as he gets bigger, stronger, faster, and dominates. So I just think it's so important when you guys go on your visits, you're asking questions. A lot of you all that are young, I love that you guys are going to practices a couple of times. Watch the coach. Watch your position coach. How do they coach? Does that match your style? Are they giving you direction? And if you mess up or screw up, are they throwing you under the bus? Or are they kind of taking the blame from the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and being like, coach, that's my bad. That's not me. And then, so just how do they teach you meetings? So the key part of playing as a true freshman is how are you going to install? How are you going to play? So are they a visual person? Are they auditory? My dad, for example, has a secret director out, and that's how a lot of them have learned that. So make sure you're asking these questions. What are they teaching you? I can't say that there's a direct number of money you're going to make. Let's say if you're a linebacker 4-star and you're getting X amount. That's not necessarily the case. It's what are the position needs? Every school is different. Who do they have coming back? So it just depends. Now, I'll just tell you, for me, for example, I'm calling people at the schools. I have other people that I call to get your chunk of that. Like, what's your market value? I guess I could say. It's not an exact science right now because nothing is, there's no database that says this is what our market value is, right? So it's what's your value? Who are you talking to? And then, but there's not enough. It depends, playing time, like I said, doubles, triples, what you're going to make. Let's see what else. Yeah, how are they going to use you? I think a great question for your guys' visitors this next weekend to ask the coaches that you're talking to. What do I need to improve to make an immediate impact on the field? This will tell you how close you watch your film, and if they think you're going to play away, if they can rattle off 1 or 2 things. And they just give you general who's the weight room, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but like what specifically are my skill set can I work on? So that's super important. Just asking questions, get to know them. I know it's a lot of Clark children right at the beginning. And it's hard to stick through that. But start your gut. Another thing, so like I said, roster time, before you guys are serious about any schools, you should know every single person on that current roster that plays your position. What they weighed when they started, what their height was, how do they match up to you guys as a whole, and then education. Does the school have a teacher? So, football, even if you play in the NFL for 15 years, one day that's going to end. And you don't want to have to go back to school and pay out of your own pocket and you have the chance for someone else to pay for school. A lot of times, Chase was the first person in his family to go to college. He played 7 years of college football and walked away with a master's and is now a collegiate strength coach. So even, best case scenario, you're in NFL, you're playing forever. Worst case scenario, you walk away with a college degree, a couple, whatever X amount of money in the bank, and you guys are set. Okay? So that's really important. All this to say, please don't just go to the school that makes the most amount of money. Okay. Any questions there? Okay. All right. So this is something I wish I would have done with a couple of the other kids I met with. These are foundational concepts that I kind of take for granted that aren't really known. Okay. So paper play versus NIL. You can tell me right now in the room, in college, is it paper play or is it NIL? What do you money off of?
NIL.
Yes. Good enough. So paper play is the NFL, right? You're in college, or sorry, you're in the NFL, you play with the Falcons, you're getting paid on what you are, how you produce as a linebacker, how you produce as a receiver, how many yards you get, right? You have your contract, you're getting paid to play football. You're not cutting it, you're gone, all right? So, also important in the NFL, MLB, whatever, you're an employee of the organization, you have an employee right, that's a guarantee, and there's collective bargaining, okay? So you have somebody representing you. In college right now, we're under the facade that it is NIL is unfortunately besides the play, okay? But we can use this to our advantage, you all as athletes can use NIL to your advantage, and then universities are using it to their advantage. So when I'm saying NIL, this is Michael Jordan, right? That any Travis Hunter, he had a lot of commercials, door cameras. Okay, so this is commercials on TV. This is Nike, Reebok, Adidas, whoever, Coke, Chick-fil-A, whatever. That's through NIL. So that's in college because the NCAA refuses to acknowledge all their employees. They don't want to pay you minimum wage. They don't want to give you workers' comp. They don't want to really give you employee protection. They're only allowing you to earn NIL money. Okay? So that's something really important to know. I just want to give you guys a brief timeline because it's changing rapidly right now. So I'm going to go through this quick. But before 2021, you all were not allowed to earn money off of your name and likeness. So anybody in the world can profit off of their name and likeness. So a really good example is like Olympian athletes, like the gymnasts that are 16 years old. If they want to be on a beauty block, they can use collegiate gymnastics. Okay, so if they earn money off of it, which they can earn millions of dollars, they can go to school and do gymnastics in the NCAA. So NCAA is the only one, basically, entity in the world that can tell you you can't earn money off of your own name and your likeness. After 2021, that changed. It didn't change because the NCAA kind of had this, you know what, we're really hurting these kids, we should let them profit. No, it was because there's a Supreme Court unanimous decision that forced them, along with California and other states, making state laws. Okay, so this is important because we kind of are going through the same thing right now. I'll get to that later. But because you're allowed to earn name, image, and likeness in college, and schools can directly give you money, you have this thing called collective. Is anyone familiar with collective? Yeah. So Alabama right now, Auburn, I'm gonna throw out a lot of different schools. I'm not biased for any schools. They can't hand you a check for $100,000. Okay. Alabama has a separate entity, this is like gangs or whatever. That's their collective. They can give you $100,000 because Alabama cannot. Okay. So this was a workaround. NIL. You were being paid to play football at Alabama, but it's made in the environment. Does that make sense? So this is important when I'm going to go through later in the contract that I handed you. If they want to say you guys are making NIL, then they can't touch your pay if you get hurt. Okay? So both sides can use this, and you all can also use it here today. Now, for being an employee, be better. Yes, I guarantee you by the time y'all are in college, there's going to be the next crazy lawsuit where you're all going to be employees. Because then you can have collective bargaining, and then a salary cap is actually equal like the NFL. If there's not collective bargaining and you don't have people representing you, no one can tell you that you can only earn X amount. That's the anti-trust side. I won't get into it because no fall asleep. But I just want to make sure. Does anyone have any questions about that? That's a really important discrepancy to understand at this point in time. No? Okay. Awesome. Oh, got it. Really quick. So right now, the new all-sting of 2021 is the House settlement. This was supposed to be announced and we still do not have a decision. If this is approved by Judge Logan, who's a Northern District federal judge in California, this is going to now prevent universities to directly share revenue to you. We're going to get back to that. We're going to go back to that, but that's a huge difference. So before it was collective, handing you guys checks. After the settlement is approved, it can be universities. Okay, we'll dig into that later, but I just want to make sure you know that there's a difference between these two things. Okay. Anything? No? Okay, this is the poster child for horror stories of NIL, unfortunately. So this is Matthew Fluka, UNLV, Los Angeles, right? He was in the portal, big butt, at an FCS school, and was offered $100,000 to go to UNLV. Okay, so he graduates, he arrives, he enrolls. He's enrolled for a couple of weeks. Importantly, there's no contract. We'll get to that. Okay. So he's enrolled. His agent emailed UNLV, the collected at this point in time, right, until this past year, and introduced himself. And UNLV was like, okay, his NIL agent at the time, who's also an NFL agent, was not registered in the state of Nevada as an agent, so they said they can talk to him. Just a side note, most states have some type of athlete agent law that agents who are practicing in the state need to be certified. You can Google Alabama athlete agent law, you'll see my name, you'll see others' names. Most importantly, if you are working with somebody that you like that's an agent, ask them about it. Hey, are you certified by the state of Alabama? Now, if they say, no, I'm working on it, I'm getting my certification, that's okay. Technically, you're supposed to be like certified in the state you really do business. So if it is a lot, and if there's caveats where you're working on your certification, it's fine. If they say, nobody does that, I don't care. Should you be working on this person? No. Because they're breaking the law. Yeah, so the point of getting certified, right, for Alabama, they look at, have you ever filed for bankruptcy? Have you been sued? What's your education? What experience do you have? I don't want to say it was not a very hard process, unfortunately. But if, for example, hypothetically, JJ sued me and was like, you were super dishonest, you were a fraud, you were lying, and I could lose my certification. So there are checks and balances. Unfortunately, you have to report these people, and then the state has to take action, which is we all know doesn't always happen, unfortunately. So a lot of times it's the news where we see that shady thing happen. Like this guy, I looked it up, has never been reprimanded by the state of Nevada. However, everybody knows his name and knows he's free to stay. And so UNLV says, hey, buddy, you're not an agent in the state of Nevada. I can't do business with you. Season started. They started out 3-0. Last year there was one group of 5 teams that got an automatic playoff win. Everyone at the beginning was saying, UNLV was going to be the team. I think they beat an SEC team and some other Power 4 team. We start out 3-0. His agent, his kid, was like, okay, you know you can understand right now we're sitting now. And so it's really hard.
The kid was like, how he's really taking a stand that honestly, if it was me, I don't think I could give up a year playing for everybody's good. I couldn't. you only have so many years to play. I really couldn't. I thought he was kind of taking a stand, doing some research. His agent majorly screwed him. Okay. Not only did he violate Nevada state law, he violated the NCAA law of pay for play. You cannot, right? We're going to use them back and forth. They said, hey, that is the definition of pay to play, to say if you don't give us 100 grand, we're not playing. Unfortunately, I don't think you could be any more clear of that. So before I go to the next slide, can anyone else issue spot a problem that maybe could have solved this?
What was the question?
Is there anything this kid could have done better besides hiring a better agent?
I have questions and need more research on everything in general.
Yes, ma'am, that's definitely something. The next thing, next slide.
Yeah, this thing, you know.
Get contract in writing.
Okay.
Please, 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 please. If some school is offering you 100 grand, which UNLV probably did, they probably said we're gonna offer you 100 grand to come play here. It doesn't mean shit until it's in writing and a contract signed by both parties, okay? Luckily for you all in this room, there has been an awesome court ruling that has changed that is going to allow you to negotiate your contract before you enroll in a school. So last year, a lot of kids were in a really tough position because for the NCAA rule, you were not allowed to negotiate your NIL contract until after you enrolled. So it kind of puts you in a bad spot, right? I hate throwing out schools because you guys are considering a lot of them. Any Washington, let's say they're saying, hey, 500,000, if you come here, you would have to enroll and then sign the contract, right? So this was happening all over the place. Thank goodness now you all can absolutely negotiate your full contract before you enroll. Now, unfortunately, we also live in the state of Alabama. So are you allowed to earn NIL as a high school athlete?
No.
No. Because then you lose your high school eligibility, and I know you will regret it for the rest of your life if you're not able to play your senior year. It's not worth it. It really isn't. It's not, okay? So that's where y'all are really in a bind, okay? But critically, you don't have to sign your scholarship papers until you sign your contracts. Now, the Alabama High School Association is if you earn NIL money, you're ineligible for high school, right? So once it's your last game, once you're done playing high school sports, I know a lot of you graders for my upcoming seniors who graduate early in December. Okay, so you guys can start, then at that point, once you're done with high school. They do not, and unfortunately, a lot of agents out there, there's only 9 states left where you can't earn NIL as a high school student. We're looking. Okay, so that's just important to know. Like I said, he violated state law, he violated the agent, violated regulations. Also important to know, just really quick, when you guys are talking to coaches, you might love the assistant coach more than anybody on this planet. That's who you're vibing with, that's who you trust, that's who you want to play for. They don't have the final say on how much money you're making, all right? They got to go up to the coordinator, that has to go through the head coach, now that has to go through the general manager, and then it has to get approved by admin, okay? So even though this person's telling you something and you trust them with your whole entire life, there's a lot of checks and balances that has to go before it's real. But like we talked about already, you're gonna have a contract signed and executed before we get there. So that's not gonna be an issue. But that was happening a lot last year, all years before. Okay, this is a great question. I get a lot, and I'm just kind of gonna go through some. Oh, sorry. Yes.
I just had a question. So how does that play into, I know you said that Alabama doesn't offer, kids the, NIL in high school.
Yeah.
How does it play the role if someone's like trying to sponsor that kid while they're already in high school?
So you can't do it.
That's the main question.
Yeah. So you all are in high school.
Someone just wants to get you to wear that gear as, that's.
That having your son wear their shirt they're using your name, image, and likeness to promote your business. If that makes sense. Yeah, so there's different situations that could play out a little differently, but it sounds like, and we can talk after too to get to the specific scenario. But that sounds like they're trying to use your son's name, image, and likeness, right? Now, I know you all plan on coming on some teams and whatever, that's like different, right? You're playing on a team, the team is sponsored by somebody, they're not using your individual name, image, and likeness, right? But if someone wants to purposely use you to promote their products and you're getting paid for it, that's a violation of the state.
Even if they're not getting paid, would it still be a violation?
If they're not getting paid, I would.
No, it's just a question.
Yeah, if you're not getting paid and they want your son to promote their products, I would stay away. I would stay away because they're, as we all know, we all live and die by football in this state, and your rival high school sees it on Facebook and they're reporting you. So I would stay away and wait till college, and then they can go for it and make money off of it. And it's different, right? So we have high school regulations that are trumped by state laws. So I saw that there's a bill pending in the Alabama legislature that wants you all to be able to profit off of NIL. If that passes, that trumps the high school rules and you can earn. It's just the different levels of statutes, court rulings, etc., which we'll kind of go through later. But yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so this is what I want to tell you all right now. And I know a lot of you have been called by agents. And my number one pet peeve right now is they're like, hey, JJ, we want to represent you. Missouri is going to give you, hypothetically speaking, $200,000, okay? But we want a 30% check. All this person did was call Missouri. Missouri told them, yeah, we're going to give JJ $200,000. They told JJ and they want 30%. That's what NIL agents are doing, okay? Now, if you're doing that, you don't need an agent. Parents can call. What I'm gonna go through later is that $200,000 can be chopped into $10 because they're gonna legally try to, if you don't pan out the way they think you're gonna pan out, and some kids don't kill it until their junior and senior year, and that's fine. But if Missouri needs to win that year and the coach is on the hot seat, and if they don't win and the whole staff is getting fired, they might let you go, okay? And not owe you a dime. All you made was $10. So I'm gonna go through that later, but I think it's really important to know, do your research, look up this person, do a Google search. Like I said, Sluka's, the guy we talked about earlier, his NIL agent was a NFL agent. So just because you're an NFL agent doesn't mean you know the current NCAA rules and regulations. It's hard. Like, we're gonna talk this hour of the needle, by I don't know, I might be pained by it. But there's so much stuff going on, state laws, NCAA regulations, everything to know. So if your agent doesn't know that stuff, you don't need them. The only reason you need an agent is to legally negotiate your contract. Now, do I think that 200,000 could maybe go up, a couple grand? Absolutely, with an agent, but it's not gonna go up enough where you need to hand them 30%. Okay? So they can negotiate it. More important, and we're gonna go through later, you need to be legally protected in your contract. Now, I say this because my own father was screwed over by an agent when he was at a really good school, missed out on a huge paycheck. His agent is at one of the top agencies right now that represents professional athletes, and they also have a coaching brand, so I'm not going to expose anyone here. He was not a lawyer, okay? He lost out on a year's salary because of that. And general counsel at the university did that. So you guys are literally signing full-on employee contracts without the protections of being an employee. But like I said, if your agent can't help you legally protect yourself, you don't need them. Okay. Let's see. What else? Oh, and this is my other pet peeve. We have a lot of kids that start at Sunbelt schools and they kill it. They're an All-American. They had over 1,000 yards in receiving yards, they're a receiver, and they're getting calls, right? And their agent is saying, hey, let's say this kid's dream school is Georgia. their agent saying, hey, the only way you're gonna get to Georgia is if you hire me. I know the people at Georgia. It's BS. No. Do you know how many people Georgia has in the recruiting office? And how many coaches they have, but that's their sole job? Nobody is going to take you based off just of who your agent is, okay? It's your guys' talent, your hard work, your film, who you are as a person, that's gonna get you to where you need to be. Same for the NFL. Hi. A fun little story to really quick. My dad always tells his kids when he's in college, when the NFL scouts are coming to talk to people in the building about what kind of person you are. They're gonna ask the strength coaches, they're gonna ask the dietitians, they're gonna ask the training staff, they're gonna ask the janitors. Doesn't matter who they ask. You want everyone in there to say you're a good person, which I know you are. But basically, it's not the agent. This is fun. So Jeremiah Webb played at South Alabama this past year. He signed an undrafted free agent deal with the Patriots. Mike Verbal in their last team meeting was like, "Hey, raise your hand if you can tell me who the lunch lady's name is." Shot his hand up. He got it right, and he got a $100 bill. And not only that, he just made a huge impression to make the 53-man roster. Okay, he got more reps the next day. But long story short, if anyone tells you they're the sole reason you can get to your dream school, BS. If anyone tells you they got you 200 grand, no, they didn't. You got you 200 grand. Just make sure that 200 grand is protected. Any questions here? There's some horror stories out there. Yeah. Okay, this is huge. So, in the NFL, your contracts, when I say your contracts with the Cowboys, with the Falcons, whoever, is capped at 3% to your agent. So if I'm representing an NFL player, I cannot take more than 3%. It's against the NFL rules. Okay, they have a collective bargaining agreement. You can't, you're done being an agent if you do that. 3% max. Now, their player contracts, it's the same thing for you all in college. That's going to be your collective contracts and your university rev share agreement. Okay, you're being paid for NIL. You're being paid for football. So 3% max. Do not give anybody more than 3%. If they're like 9%, no. What about the NFL? 3%. Do not give them more than 3%. And the NBA is 4%. Luckily, none of you all, I don't know, maybe you will be. Major League Baseball players or play hockey, they don't have agent commissions. So endorsement contracts, that's your Gatorade commercials, that's your Nike commercials. Agents do typically say take 15 to 25% of that because there's a little more work into that, right? I'm not calling Missouri and saying how much are you giving JJ? Oh, 200. Okay, hey JJ, I got you 200. It's a little more that goes into that. But I want to make sure you all aware because I know there's people calling all of y'all right now that's saying, hey, I want to represent you for 20%, 15%, 25%. And they're essentially tricking y'all into thinking that this 15 to 25% is fair for your contract with a collective or a university. Does that make sense? Any questions there? So just know that. So for example, I personally take 3%, that's like my fee for collectives and universities, and then 15% of endorsement contracts, okay? But if someone's like, I charge 20% flat fee, they're taking 20% of your collective and university agreement, and next slide, that adds up, okay? So just, I know you all know that, you can do the math, you're all very smart, but don't let anyone trick you honestly into taking more than 3%.
The commission, with that, I can tell you.
Before it's what are you gonna get? Oh, sorry. So that's actually a great question. So that is gonna be a great question. Most people are taking it before taxes. I'm willing to negotiate that. Okay. All the other agency fee agreement I've done is before. I'm willing to, we'll talk, it's not about me, it's about you all. But just know, okay, read the contract, read the stuff, know if it's a 20% flat fee, that's out of everything, all right? And our next slide, you read my mind, you're a mind reader. Okay, this is so important because not everybody knows this. My mom would have been able to help me with this if I was able to make 100 grand in college. My dad would have had no clue. When you all are paid an NIL from a collective, from a university, from Nike, from Gatorade, no taxes are automatically withheld. All right? So you're giving a flat 200 grand into your bank account, and it's up to you to pay those taxes. Now I tell you this because we have an ACC receiver that was making 800 grand. It's probably gonna be a first through third round draft pick. And he was like, I just got in contact with the IRS and I owe $225,000. So, did he have $10 left in his bank account? No. So, I tell you this because when you all are gonna get paid, you're gonna take your taxes, you're gonna put it into a separate bank account. You're not gonna touch it. When you get to that next tax bracket, the IRS is gonna make you make quarterly payments. And you're not gonna end up in that boat, okay? That's honestly something my dad would have not known. No way, no chance. I don't know if he knows his routing number. But my mom would have been on it, but not everybody had, so that's just, this kid obviously didn't have somebody that knew that, okay? So that's what, and I have somebody that I trust that works with taxes. They're out of state. I'm vetting more people in state. I don't love the way this guy answers questions, honestly. He's not very responsive. He could explain things a little better. He's never screwed up my taxes. He's never screwed up my parents' taxes. But I want somebody that can explain things to you all at the level you deserve. Because honestly, the most vulnerable position you can be in is a CPA that has your account numbers, that has your routing numbers, and then stuff starts to disappear. Okay. So this has happened to a lot of NFL players who blindly give their money to someone else to manage. Y'all are never going to do that. You're going to know a rough estimate. You're going to be in the know. You're going to check on it. This would be my dad. He would blindly be robbed. But thank gosh we have my mom. Okay. Any other questions off of this? Fun fact is new states, to be able to get the next competitive edge, are making essentially tax exemptions. For example, Arkansas just passed a bill. You're not paying state income taxes from your NIL there. Alabama has a bill pending. More states are going to do this to get a recruiting edge. Okay. So I was remarkably surprised at the speed Arkansas passed theirs. There's other states, Florida, anybody, even if you're not a college athlete, there's no income tax, right? Not a sole reason we're picking a school, but it plays into effect.
NFL, don't they pay different states they play in? Does their NIL tax?
Oh, right now, you're all Alabama residents. Okay, you would be whatever Alabama. Right now, you don't get a cut. Like, there's no break if you're an NIL kid in college making money. If you change your resident, which you could do if you say played for the University of Florida, you become a resident. That's whose taxes you'll pay. No income taxes. Arkansas income taxes. JJ, I was scared he was gonna pick Arkansas just because they didn't charge taxes. We're not doing that.
So basically, what you're saying is that, let's just say if a student goes to Arkansas, it will probably be in their best interest to establish residency there, so they won't have to pay
State income tax.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, do it, do that, yeah, right.
Yep.
Yeah, so your freshman year, you probably wouldn't be able to get, but after that.
Yeah.
So they don't allow you to do it if you change your address and.
It take time for residency.
Residencies, different states have different requirements.
In California, like, I know in California, like when guys go to play JUCOs in California, the first year they'll pay full tuition, but the second year they get like an in-state break.
Yeah, okay.
And then you wanna do it too, because you qualify for state benefits as
Yes.
an employee there, so then that'll help you out there.
I know some states it takes a full year, some states it takes 6 months. We have to look at your specific. Apparently Montana is 2 years. Like, all the Californians are moving to Montana. So we have to look at your example, right? Specific example, do our research, look at the law. I know off the top of my head, it's a year, 6 months, it just depends where you're going. So that's something we definitely need to look into. If you're getting better tax benefits after new school, like we said, do that, get on it, change residency. And I'm not gonna be shocked within this next year if every school in SEC, you're not paying income taxes, for NIL. To do all the other taxes, right, because that's a huge thing. Most importantly, like, I'm not gonna stand up here and act like I'm a tax expert, I'm not a CPA. So when we're interviewing people and vetting people, are they CPA, are they qualified, do they have the qualifications? I know most CPAs, as opposed to financial advisors, when you guys are playing, you know, in the NFL, the net financial advisors, typically 1% of your investments, CPAs charge a flat rate. Okay, so it is well worth it to pay somebody that is qualified and not sketchy and has the correct education to handle your taxes. We pay our guy a couple $100 and save more than that. So it's well worth it, but we just gotta do the vetting and research, and I'm on top of that and can definitely hook you all up with people that I trust, and on that. But you can also do your own research and just make sure you get hooked up with the right person. This is what every college coach does, okay? A lot of them get paid through camps, and they have CPAs that help them work through creating tax shelters, and it's completely legal, and that's what NFL players do. It's just making sure you're connected with the right people so you get those benefits, that everybody else gets. Okay, I'll mess up. So, basics of contract, I'm not gonna go too much into this. In law school, you basically spend 16 weeks just on an offer acceptance consideration. And then the next thing was legal purpose and capacity. But like we talked about, these are the different branches of the contract. Make sure it's in writing, and I'm gonna go into it a little more right here. Next slide. Okay, so these are the most important things that I'm seeing in university and collective contracts. And I want to make sure when you walk out of this room, you're gonna look out for this, okay? So the goal of the school, like I said, you may love your coaches, they would live and die for you, whatever. But at the end of the day, the goal of the school is to exert power and control over you, okay? So it's gonna get really cutthroat when we're in a salary cap, because they're gonna be moving people faster. So, what ways they're doing this, ways they are controlling you contractually, is they have conditions to avoid paying. Okay, so they're just saying, you know what, we offered you $200,000, but guess what, you for your ACL, or we're not gonna pay you anything. Want to make sure that's not in the contract, and unfortunately, and the contract that I handed you is not going to be in bold, easy to digest, whomever, right? Which is why we have to read our contract. They're going to try to not pay for you if you're not playing up to their standards. But guess what? If you all want to go on this little game that you're getting paid NIL money, then you don't get to cut our salary for performance, right? In college, it's not pay for play, it's NIL. So if you're paying me for my NIL, you don't get to have conditions in there for performance. That's what they're all doing, okay? So we're gonna make sure we get those out. What else? So this is the most heartbreaking clause that can be in a contract. If there's a clause in your contract that says the school can terminate this contract without penalty in their sole discretion, you didn't even need to sign a contract, because guess what? The only reason that contract's there is to protect the school. You're not protected at all. Any given day, they can wake up and say, you know what? We're not paying you. Done. We don't owe you anything. And that has happened to way too many kids, unfortunately, and it's heartbreaking. So, yes.
All right, let's say you sit down and get ready to sign your contract, and that hasn't been disclosed to you. And so you actually read through it and you see it. When you see it, then could you go back to the drawing board and renegotiate the contract?
That's absolutely what you need to do. Now, what's happening right now is, unfortunately, kids without lawyers are given the contract. Is this a good or bad sign? If, once again, hypothetical schools, if Vanderbilt says, hey, sign this right now for $1 million, do you sign it right there? No. Okay, they should not only be giving you time to negotiate, they should be giving you time to consult with an attorney.
They're doing that at official visits.
don't sign anything until you can consult with an attorney if you want to, okay? Don't let them play you like that, because that clause, they don't own anything, nothing, zero, okay? So your 200,000 just turned into zero.
And that's for a job too, any job, that's anything you can negotiate.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, and a lot of schools actually that I've worked with are very much willing to negotiate. So I redline the shit out of it, okay? You're not taking out for poor performance, there's no termination in sole discretion. They're actually pretty good. Now, there's bad apples in every market. There's a couple that says take it or leave it. That's good to know. Guess what? We're moving on. Well, it's up to you, right? But it's just good to know. And unfortunately, that might not be the football coaches. That might be general counsel. That might be the GM. I've only heard of one school that's doing that. Okay, so don't just forget that. But you are able to negotiate your contract and take out these clauses, because if you're paying someone, you're not going to pay anyone 30%, but if you're paying them 3%, that 3% is probably worth it to make sure you get your 200. Okay, do not more than 3. Whoever you work with, not more than 3. Okay, like just bringing that into your brains. Additionally, they're going to try to say, hey, my dad's coached receivers for like 30 years, so sorry, I'm biased towards receivers. They're going to say, hey, if you don't have 1,000-yard season, you're only getting 5,000 of this 200,000. But like we said, this is NIL, right? You're paying me based off of my name, image, and likeness. You don't get to make cuts because I'm not statistically up there. Also, this is happening a lot, and kids that are transferring from Group of 5 schools up to Power 4 schools, they're getting calls from schools every day that are saying, hey, we're going to give you 200, we're going to give you 500, we're going to give you $1 million. Oh, I want $1 million, I'm going there. Well, guess what? In that $1 million, only $100,000 is guaranteed. Okay, so it's up to you all. It's up to your team to make sure you're getting as much money guaranteed up front, and then they can't take it away. And that's all legal negotiating. So when it's like, do you need an agent? If your agent can't do that, no, you don't give them a dime. Okay. So make sure you're legally protected. That's in any job. It's in anything. You can absolutely negotiate these contracts. He sent me his contract. I was like, he doesn't quite have the power you all have. Yes.
So once you sign this contract, you can't school hop. You're stuck to that school. So you go from transfer here and go here.
You were reading my mind for the next bullet point. So there's going to be a clause in this contract that are designed to not let you hop. Okay. And I'm sorry, but if you're going to a school because you love this defensive coordinator, you fit into their scheme, you trust them, the head coach gets fired next year, guess what happens to the defensive coordinator? He's gone. And now you're in a position, the new guy comes in, he doesn't use you how you should be utilized, you're screwed. So there's going to be, it's called a buyout clause, right? We hear this a lot with coaches. They're doing the same thing to you all. So first of all, it depends if you're on a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year deal, whatever, 4-year deal. I'm going to just use Nico, the old quarterback in Tennessee. Out of high school, I'm pretty sure he signed a 4-year deal. Okay. So that's good and bad, right? Because if let's say he didn't pan out, he wasn't the starter, if it was negotiated correctly, he's getting that $4 million. Okay. Now, I guess what I'm saying is if you go in and you kick butt and your value goes up, it's better to have a 1-year deal so you can renegotiate and get more money. If it's a 1-year deal, you can also leave and go to a different school, right? Now, even if, let's say you signed a 2-year deal, I'm at Georgia for a year, things didn't really pan out the way I wanted to, I'm gonna go somewhere else. What they're putting in is buyout clauses. So this was Nico's little brother, right? They're asking for him to pay back $200,000 that he never got. So it's better to get on the front end of this and make a buyout that's fair, right? So I think let's say he had a $400,000 contract. A fair buyout would be if I leave in the middle of this contract, I keep my 200 and I don't do anything. Why am I paying $200,000? Why am I paying you $200,000 for when I'm not there? Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's up to you all to negotiate on the front end. It's way, 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 way harder to do that on the back end after you sign the ink. If that makes sense. So coming to a buyout that's fair, you know, that's basically, I get to keep the money that I was paid. And you don't have to pay me the rest of the contract. I keep my money, you don't owe me anything else, and we're good. We're take hands and go our separate ways. That's a fair buyout, okay? Now, another fun little, you guys might not think this is cool. I'm kind of nerdy about the legal stuff, but in order for a buyout to be enforceable, it needs to be reasonable. So coaches, they're paid on if their team wins or loses. Therefore, if Nick Saban's not coaching anymore, so I can say his name. If Nick Saban was fired, or if Nick Saban wants to go somewhere else, and he owes him $1 million buyout, well, he was a really good coach. He made a lot of money. That's probably fair, right? Y'all are being paid off of NIL. So how is it fair and how is it enforceable and reasonable if you have to give them $2,000? Was the school going to make $2,000 off of your NIL? No, they need to play. So that's another way that we can use your NIL, your advantage, and not the schools, okay? It's gonna be really, really interesting. Arkansas said they're gonna take action against Nico's little brother if the court decides if it's penalty, if it's deemed a penalty, it's unenforceable, or if they're gonna enforce it. Regardless, get on the front end of it, negotiate it at the beginning before you sign anything, okay? That's clauses in their contracts that if you redshirt or sit out games due to injury, doc will pay. It's not your fault if you get hurt, right? No, you shouldn't owe them money. And then this is actually a great question that I had from a kid. Well, this school told me I was going to be a starter. They promised me I was going to start. Can I sue them if I don't start? Unfortunately, no. The courts will deem that void against public policy. They like to give employers control over internal decision making. You go into a whole spiel, but I thought it was a great question, right? Because everyone's promised they're going to start. Can't sue them, but it was a good question.
Even if it's in contract, it's unenforceable.
And that's where the university likes to throw in things like that to make you think.
Yes, got off on the SEC school right now. We got teammates that say that they gotta get so many targets per game, you know, start so many games, and I'm like,
Exactly. So, and you're in, like, let's say in the SEC, you've played a couple of years, you're in the $800,000 million range. I want that 800,000 no matter what, no matter how many tackles I get, no matter how many receiving yards I have, no matter what my passing completion is. Okay, I'm not dealing with UPS statistical quotas because it's not pay per play, right? Pay per play, it is. Okay, it is. But you guys don't get to have it both sides.
but this is the bad part about it, is that let's say that coach wants to come up with a reason to play this player over that player. Now that player can say, hey, we gotta play this guy because
So
even though it's not enforced.
So this is where, I don't know if any of you guys watch Scandal. I was a huge UFO fan. This is where you can put on your Olivia phone hat and you can burn the school if it's lying. All because they get in a bad place, right? So you can expose them, which isn't great because you might be blackballed. Unfortunately, contractually, you're probably not gonna have any recourse. Which sucks. And that's why you all know when you're picking your schools, they promise you, it's in your contract, it's writing, that's something they know, their counsel, their army of Tony attorneys know will never hold up in court. Also, like we talked about, buyout clauses, that's to be determined if that's pulled up. I don't know if it will be. Once we get to revenue share, I don't know, but it's just important to know these. I know the school knew that. I know they knew that was never going to hold up, and it's very dishonest, and it's, I don't know if the coaches knew. That sucks. Right.
A lot of dirty stuff.
Yeah, it's, and who can twist the law to their benefit, right? So the schools can definitely use this NIL trick to their, but how can you guys use it to your advantage? Okay. Next. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know how long we've been doing, I know it's been a while, but I'm just, so this can apply to your contracts with the school, contracts with your collective. This can also, these are common clauses in your Nike contracts, your State Farm contracts, okay? So these are things that you need to be aware of and look at when you're signing your contract. What are the terms? How are you being paid? Are you being paid every month? Are you being paid at the end of the year? You should know that. When are you getting paid? I need it to be explicit. I need it to be said explicitly, okay? Also, duration, how long, like we talked about, how long is this contract? So I know if, let's say this school, we really love the school, this third dream school, they're not gonna bend on the buyout. They're like, you know what, you're still gonna have to pay us $10,000 if you leave. You at least know where you stand, and then you negotiate with your next school that's taking you, they're gonna pay the buyout. And that's gonna be in writing and in the contract. That's what happens with coaches all the time. That school hiring the coach pays the buyout, okay? So it's just good to be aware. Maybe this school won't go even handshake, you know, but that's up to us to negotiate. Usage rights, who can use your name, image and likeness. We're gonna go through a quick example at the end if those that want to stay. Where this school, let the school use their name and image and likeness and give it to anybody in the school's discretion. So just, it's good to be aware, like, who can use this, right? Exclusivity clause, tragically, a lot of schools are saying, I have sole exclusive power to use your name, image, and likeness. Nobody else can use it. This school is the only one can use it, and if you want to film a commercial with Nike, you have to ask us for permission. All right, so we do not want exclusive rights to the school, non-exclusive, that's a red line. We're gonna negotiate the hell out of that, okay? Non-compete clauses, this is kind of what we were talking about, buyouts, like who, you know, maybe like to a different SEC team, this SEC school, not only, they're not gonna be able to shake hands on a $15,000 deal, they want 30 if you're going to a different SEC school, okay? So these are just things. Approval rights, do you have final approval on who's using your NIL? Termination clauses, we've gone through that to the death of us. And I think we're good there. Morality clauses, this is huge. This is how a lot of people are trying to get out of their contracts. Okay, they're gonna throw in a little clause in there that if you do not act up to the school's standard, they don't owe you a dime. Perfect example, actually, that just happened is our guy, Stephon Diggs, was on a yacht with a bunch of girls, had a substance in his hand. The video, because we all have smartphones got circulated everywhere. We don't have to pay any stuff on, okay? If that's in your contract. Good thing to be aware of, okay? Another example, right, like in your morality clause, we want it to be as specific as possible. Does it say if you just get arrested, you're done, they can terminate, or do you have to be convicted? That's a huge difference, okay? Just stuff like that, we need to nail it down as specific as possible so they can't just get out for a BS reason because they think someone else is gonna beat you out and they don't want to pay you. All right. So just little things like that. You know, people love, our country likes to use the term moral turpitude, actually in immigration laws to kick out others out of the country. They're throwing in moral turpitude in your guys' clauses. So if you're just not acting up to the school's standard, then they can get out of it, okay? So it's really important that we get that to as specific as possible. Yes.
Question, is that falls under like social media posting too?
Yes, ma'am.
If they don't like something that you posted on social media, they can say, well, we're severing ties with you, we're not gonna pay you.
That's likes too, right? Likes. Comments.
So when I was in college, I played softball at the University of Montana. That was back when you liked anything on Twitter, it would pop up, like you could see who liked it. The amount of suicides we had to run because people like stupid shit. Okay, so just be careful. All right, don't like stupid stuff on Instagram. Don't like nonsense. Okay, I will say you all, your social media is pretty spectacular. It's very clean cut. I'm super impressed with your generation. You're a lot better than our generation was. Our first, like all the athletes had to take a class, and the first class, everyone in the class, they would throw up a picture from your Instagram. let's just say that somebody sitting at this table might have been in a hot tub with beer cans and girls and got roasted, okay? Okay. So, but now, not only will you get publicly embarrassed, they're gonna take your money away. Okay, higher stakes, all right? But y'all's social media has been really good, like for the vast majority of people, like it's been good. Keep it that way. Likes, everything. Dispute resolution, are you signing away your right to sue in your contract? That's a sneaky little clause in there that people love to slide in. Ideally, it would be you go to mediation, or first you negotiate wholeheartedly, faithfully, you go to negotiation, and then if you don't come up to a conclusion that both parties agree to, then you can sue them, okay? But a lot of these people are like, no, like you're arbitrating, you need to pick the arbitrator. Tough luck, you don't get to sue us, okay? So just be careful there. The like teams and the school gave your NIL to somebody else, kind of already talked about that. And then lastly, are the contracts compliant with state law and NCAA law, okay? So it's, you'd be shocked at some of these, like, you have to have so many tackles. It's just, I don't know. So it's a, you gotta tread the line pretty carefully, but, just make sure you're not the one at fault, so we can kind of take advantage of it.
I had a question.
Yes.
So how do the NIL play out now that they didn't brought back the NCAA as football game?
Yeah, so that's a whole different, like that, it was basically, a group agreement where they paid a percentage of the, so because they're in college, right, they can earn money off of their licensing rights. And I think you have to agree to that. And then the school, it's kind of a whole, we can talk more about that after, but yeah, that's like, you could talk probably an hour about that specific thing. But yeah, it's a very interesting thing that now that they brought it back, which is super cool. Okay, and then it's just important to know the the hierarchy of what rules trump what, right? So we have our Alabama High School Association. If Alabama passes state law, high school association rules are out the door, okay? In which way they're overturned. So if the state of Alabama says you guys can earn NIL rights, the high school association can't do anything about that. You guys need to earn NIL money, okay? So that's important to know. The NCAA right now, as it stands, is like, you know what, our hands are tied. It's up to the states to decide. Obviously, they have their couple of rules that you have to follow. And so you take the NCAA rules plus the state laws and you have to kind of walk the line. It's confusing, like it's really confusing. Court rulings, government court rulings trump all of them, okay? So the Northern District of California, which is where the House settlement is happening, if you know that sign, that takes precedence over everything. So it's very confusing. Just make sure you have someone, do your research, someone that knows all this and how to walk those lines. And then universities and conferences have their own rules as well, which is not also a fun thing to add on top of it. So this is really important. We all went through this. You guys can't earn NIL in Alabama. We all know that. Hopefully there's a new law passed. There's no current specific state NIL rule in Alabama. As of right now, there was one that got repealed because it ended up being more over restrictive than that was back in 2021. This is kind of a summary of the state at the agent law that basically what they're doing. So like I said, right, they're seeing if you have a criminal record, lawsuits, unpaid judgments, bankruptcy, fraud, etc. You know someone that's breaking these rules, report them. Just kidding. You can do whatever you want. And then, like I was talking about, the tax cut that's pending right now. Okay, so this, I just showed this because this was the NCAA NIL laws this past year. And I kind of highlighted how much it's changed in the last year, right? So in 2024, right, we have, you can earn money off of your NIL, yes, but you can't negotiate it before, right? We talked about there's a lawsuit, acts it out, the NCAA can't enforce that anymore. In there, it says schools can't directly give you money. That's going to be X out, right? If the House settlement passes, you can earn money. So this is basically just to show you, this is literally changing every day. Every new court case that comes up is changing this. So it's just important to be in the know, follow what's going on. Yeah. you guys. Okay, I really, really wanted to talk about this. This is the bread and butter of what you guys are gonna be living in. When I talked to JJ a couple weeks ago, it was pretty certain this would pass the House settlement. I honestly don't know anymore. Okay, so this is interesting. So there's a bunch of components to this. NCAA and its power conferences have to pay $2.8 billion in back payments for old people like us that played in 2016 up to September 2024. Okay, so that's back payments to former athletes that didn't get to receive NIL money. Now, this is what's huge for you all, is that this settlement, now, granted, each person filled out a stupid questionnaire, and they're gonna get like a couple $100. So is it fair? Probably not, but that's an aside. Revenue sharing. This is what's huge for you all, and this is what you all need to understand. If this passes, I've literally been checking. I was like, it's gonna pass today when I'm talking to you all, and I'll have to like change the slide. If this passes, which we don't know, it was supposed to, it had its final hearing April 7th, and the judge basically told the NCAA, oh, a big issue has been roster caps and scholarship limits. It changed from scholarship limits to roster caps. The judge told the NCAA, you have to let walk-ons that are on teams right now keep their spot, and they refuse to change their settlement. So who knows if it's gonna get passed? Honestly, I don't know. People are pissed because, yes, this settlement allows schools to directly share revenue with you. So this is the first time ever Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, Tennessee, whoever can write you guys a check, okay? So that's a really, really big deal. It's gonna be, they're gonna have a salary cap of $20.5 million. Now, everyone wanted this because they thought it would be like the NFL, right? We're all on even terms. This is the salary cap. It's gonna be more fair, blah, 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 blah. But third-party entities, AKA collectives, Nike, whoever, can still pay you all, okay? This is really, really, really important that you know this, because if a if this House settlement passes, which could pass any day, if a third party is paying you all, and we need to know from your contract if they're paying you, it's going to have to pass a fair market value test, okay? Now, the NCAA is throwing up their hands because they don't want to get sued into oblivion. They hired Deloitte, a major consulting firm, and they created NIL to go. Okay, they think it's genius, whatever. So, but the point is, basically why I'm telling you this, I'm so glad you guys are not going into your freshman year of college because it's going to be a mess. Everyone's going to sue if their $600 or more value doesn't pass, okay? And why this is important for you all, if I'm you, I want a majority of my money coming from the school. I want it from the school because I don't have to deal with this crap, okay? But right now, coaches are saying, hey, we're giving you $1 million, 200,000 is going to be from the school, 800,000 is going to be from the collective. That might not even pass and you might not get paid. Deloitte's throwing crazy numbers out right now that like, I don't really believe anything. Like, it's hard. They're saying like 70% of the deals aren't gonna pass. It's really hard. If this is an antitrust violation, they're gonna get sued. I don't know. It honestly might not last when you guys are freshmen in college. But this is the world we live in. It's important to be aware because when you are when you all graduate midterm and we're negotiating your contract, I want the money to be from the school. Okay, as much of it as possible because that is guaranteed. If it is from a collective, it's not. Now, separate entities, publicly traded companies that are legit, they don't have to pass they don't have to go through this. So it's basically made for collectives, right? Also an antitrust violation because if you're not collectively bargained, you cannot tell somebody how much money they can make. And it's really hard to say if they're willing to pay you $1 million that that's not your fair market value. Now, that's like the nerdy, all the lawyers are saying that, but there's also the realistic aspect of schools are gonna fight like hell. Different schools, the NCAA, tons of money is throwing in towards lobbying. They're trying to get a federal law passed that trumps this, okay? This is not to scare you, it's just make sure you're aware, there's different things you need to be aware about and negotiate for your benefit. Yes,
Is that where the stars are gonna come in, like 4-star, 5-star, is that where the fair market value is gonna be based on?
so this is hard, right? Because your fair market value is technically supposed to be your name, image, and likeness, okay? And that's what they're trying to say. Now, Travis Hunter had United commercials, and so like, yeah, it would be pretty hard to say he's not worth $1 million. But if you all, let's say you have 200 Instagram followers, it's gonna get that sued. Okay, they're gonna get sued. It's gonna be a lawsuit. It's an antitrust violation. But I don't want to put you in a position, and I'm gonna go through this example in your contract. That contract that's in front of y'all, the Big Ten school said, hey, if your payment doesn't pass fair market value, we don't do anything. Okay, so it's just important to know where's your money coming from, how can we protect ourselves? It's a mess, and it's gonna be a mess, and I'm very like, I want rules, I want order, and that's unfortunately just not the case right now. Okay, so this is basically the rebuttal to that. We have 14 states right now that are saying, okay, we don't care with your stupid little fair market value test. Tennessee said, if you're paid, and the school can pay you, and we're not gonna follow the House settlement. This is very 2021, when NIL first came into existence. And I don't know if y'all have seen, like, well, the SEC might take Tennessee out. I don't have any answers, unfortunately, today. We're just gonna have to see how it plays out. And like I said, I'm glad you guys are going into your senior year. And this next couple of months will be really telling for what happens. So, but yeah, so like Tennessee's law, prohibits any limits on athlete compensation, direct rebuttal to the House settlement. Unless there's a federal law passed, which Congress would have to agree, and that's probably not gonna happen. A valid court order, or in the future it's exempt from antitrust laws, collective bargaining, that example.
Can you repeat? So are you telling, I don't know if I missed something, are these states good things or bad things?
So Tennessee, these all have, some of these states passed laws that just said the school can pay you, because right now a bunch of them have laws that say the school can't pay you, so they were just getting ready for the House settlement. This is a good thing for you all. Yes, Tennessee is a friendly state for you all. Now, is Tennessee gonna get kicked out of the NCAA for it? To be determined. Out of the SEC, NCAA, we don't know. Okay, there's been talks for a while that this could all happen. We're gonna really see Tennessee go up head to head with the SEC and NCAA, and who wins. Now, Tennessee sued the NCAA and won already before, and which allows y'all to negotiate your contracts before you enroll. So it'll be really interesting. Now, some of these laws just say, they have laws right now, like I said, and can't receive payment from the school, so they were just changing it that you could in getting ready for the House settlement. Because we don't have the House settlement yet, to be, but this is just to show you, when you're looking at schools, we need to look up this stuff, okay? So it's all gonna play out, it's gonna be the NCAA versus the states have already won in 2021, we'll see what happens next. This is a big today, actually. So this is what I was saying earlier. If you guys are like, anyone wants someone, it's kind of a nerd, and that definitely never played a sport before, but he does throw out some like good facts to follow on Twitter. Legal stuff that's going on. So he's saying, like the clearinghouse, you have to show its fair market value. Right now, people are signing deals all over the place where, how can it, like, first of all, we don't even know there's not a House settlement, okay? That hasn't even been approved. And then if there is a House settlement, we don't know what's fair market value, what's not. So that $300,000 you're getting paid from the collective, you might not get. So it's a mess. Okay, so schools are promising you, yeah, all this money is absolutely guaranteed. No, it's not. Not until all of this plays out. And I don't want to scare anybody, but it's just good to be aware of these things, okay? Yes.
I have one more question. So let's take it, for example, like JJ, who's graduated early. Well, you graduated early, right? when they're negotiating their contract, is it a good thing to negotiate for the year, the 2 years, or negotiate for the 6 months that they're going to be there in that 2025, 2026 school year based off all of these changes?
So Deloitte, the NTA, when the House settlement passes, Deloitte saying they're gonna have this clearinghouse up in 3 days. And there's gonna be instant lawsuits. We're gonna know pretty soon what's getting passed and what's not. With you all and this happening, if the schools allow you, I would probably pick 6 months. Just with all of the crazy changes are going on. Now, granted, there's some risk to that, right? Like if you sign a 6-month contract and they don't want you anymore, you're left high and dry. So that's risky. So honestly, I'd probably go a year saying that out loud because
Like from that January to
Yes.
January? or-
that and January to January is great because you played a football season. It's about to be bowl season. You know where you stand, you know where you work, you know what your market value is a little better. If you can ask for money, if you cannot, or if you want to leave. So a January to January is probably the perfect term. There's pros and cons to both, but I don't want to say anything like you're safe and it's good, but I'd probably go a year, January to January.
So if you say January to January and it comes to the end and you would wanna leave, would you sit out bowl games? Or would you transfer, you know?
So some coaches, if you get in the portal, adios. You don't need to travel to a bowl game. Now, you could go January to January. You're in the playoffs this year in the national championship. Not early February, January. February, okay. So if that happens, that's just kind of gotta be a decision you wanna make. Do you wanna stay there and play? Or were you miserable and you know you wanna go to a different school? Probably gotta get to that school before winter term. Right? Yeah. So that's kind of a decision you have to make.
What about the June kids?
Sorry.
What about the kids that go in June?
So June, so you can sign a year, right? If you wanna leave early, the 2 portal openings, right? So we have our winter portal and then our, like, that other portal. You can leave whenever you want. You can get in the portal whenever you want. There's just gonna be, it's what your contract determines your buyouts are gonna be, if that makes sense. So some schools, I honestly think it's better for you all to do a year, whether that's January to January or for the full academic school year. And then you just have to make sure you're protected contractually, if that makes sense. Now, if they're throwing some major money at you, it might not be a bad idea to go 2 years. But the portal opening is still when you can get in the portal and leave, and then you have to take your contract. So there's what you can do, and then your contractual ramification. They're kind of different, right? That makes sense. Okay. This was just like all of these court decisions changed the NCAA laws this year. So this is, we talked about this, you can now negotiate your contract before you roll. We have Pavia, his lawsuit, he prevailed on a preliminary injunction, gave everybody in his similar situation an extra year. That changed the whole NCAA rules instantly. This is, Eli challenged the 5-year rule, you have 5 years to play 4 seasons. And he was over so he had to play 4 seasons, but he had already expanded his 5 years. He sued them, he won, okay? So this is all changing, all of this is based in antitrust law.
Still playing for you, we're saying that, it's clock.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a tweak to Pavia. So Pavia's clock didn't run out, but then all the kids that had passed 5 years, they weren't included in that blanket waiver. So he sued, he won, and him specifically, the NCAA hasn't issued a blanket waiver yet. But he can still play because he's after his clock.
So each kid needs to sue separately for their case.
So Pavia was awesome because he took the bullet for a bunch of kids, sued, probably paid out of his NIL money for those lawyers, it was probably a couple $100,000, won, and then the NCAA was like, oh crap, like they're gonna get a million lawsuits, so they issued the blanket waiver. The 5-year rule, because a bunch of kids didn't fall into that waiver, individual kids just had to sue, prevail, NCAA hasn't given a blanket waiver, it pertains to Ben, they're still gonna fall on the same thing. So courts all over the country are all over the place. It's true chaos until the Supreme Court decides, or we have the federal legislature. NCAA also to avoid this, and even where you have to sue, you can appeal to the NCAA to give you an extra year. They were a bunch of jerks who would say, yeah, instead of facing this, but whatever. Okay, any questions? Yes.
Several parents come out of their mouth that they're gonna represent their child. I see, look on your face. What are the dangers of a parent trying to represent their child?
There's nobody that I love, nobody that I trust more than my parents. My parents would do absolutely anything in the world for me. It still to this day, with my age, if I have a problem, I go to my mom and dad, okay? And they would do anything for me and try their best to do anything for me. The problem is not talking about anybody in this room. I know you all are a fantastic problem. Parents, you brought your kids here during the summer to make them sit through a bunch of legal crap. Problem is if it's your parent, are you legally knowledgeable enough to represent them? If it's a parent that you trust, another thing, and this is not just with parents, it's with other agents. A lot of parents like to shop their kids around during football season. Okay, my kid is only getting 12 snaps a game. This is bullshit. He needs to be going somewhere else. They're calling all these different schools. This might ring a bell. His dad was doing that. He was calling other people over the winter portal opening. Well, I don't remember if it was USC. Oregon. It was Oregon. Snitch. Dan Lanning snitch. Called Tennessee and said, hey, guess what your boy's doing? Okay. So I know my parents would do everything in their absolute power to protect me and advocate for me. Do you have the legal knowledge to do that?
Contracts are written to counteract the word.
And that's
To contradict it.
that's what I hated the lawyers. I hated everyone in my law school class. They were a bunch of snobs. But it's a shield and a sword. We're gonna use this sword to kill those that don't have this knowledge, and those that do just their shield. So I don't know. So my dad, for example, my dad is a freaking college football coach. Does he know any of this legal stuff? No. Does he understand the fair market value? No. Okay, he doesn't. He's like, I'm like, Dad, like this is literally related to your job. He doesn't get it. Okay, he's brilliant when it comes to football, but contractually can they protect you? So that's the question. I'm not giving. It's a classic gospel. It depends. I'm not going to say parents should never do it, but yes.
All right, let's say, all right, like these kids, they getting ready to go into their senior year. How far before that time should they be looking into actually getting an agent? Because what you don't want to do is wait right to the end and then you trying to hurry up and just take somebody that, like you said, if they don't give you that information that, hey, you don't take more than this 3%, blase, but you just trying to hurry up and get an agent.
So that's a really tricky thing, especially being in the state of Alabama, right? Because NIL is still legal. Now, there's nothing in the NCAA, there's nothing in the Alabama High School Association rules that prevents you from hiring. Okay. There's something in the state agent rules that I can't give JJ Rolls Royce for signing with me. You're not, we know that's been happening since Reggie Bush, right? Like that's been happening forever. So I would love for you all to go on your visits and not know the exact dollar amount that you're getting paid. Should you start doing your research of who you want to hire, probably senior year.
Should you have that agent before you commit?
think that's personal preference. If your agent is pushing you hard towards one specific school, red flag. It's your choice. And there's schools right now saying, Joe Blow, so like hypothetically, right? Let's say I'm gonna use the school of Washington State. That's where we use it. Washington State's telling me, hey, if you get this kid to come to me, I'm gonna give the kid $100,000, but I'm gonna give you $100,000.
That's a red flag too, if you have some high school coaches saying, hey, you should just go here, you should just go here, you should just go here, you should just go here.
Absolutely. They're
I'm
trying
not-
to get a job or some money.
That's been happening before the end of time, okay? So I'm not saying these people are corrupt and they're dirty, but just I'm yes.
Kid finds out his NIL value. He moves to Louisiana.
Oh, don't come on.
He moves to Louisiana so he can start getting his NIL money. Oh, he's moving. The family's moving. One of my viewers actually.
Legal. So I think you should disrupt your whole life to make money when you're gonna make thousands of dollars in college. I don't know. It's for you to decide, not me. I like I said, I like helping kids. I was in the position that I played. I was recruited. I think I can help people a little much like the Venn diagram that I showed y'all, and I have a page on the back. Ask these questions. Highlight the boxes. That's your number one pick. I like adding that little spice to it to help you all sift through this. And I had someone that did this for a living. I was so pissed in law school because my parents weren't lawyers and they couldn't help me with my homework. But this is, and so I want to like give you guys that little snippet of help, right? That you didn't have collegiate law coaches as parents. Now, I would say senior year, you should start doing your research. If they're a lawyer, you should have one before you start signing those deals. Unfortunately, a lot of the big name agencies are taking no less than 20%. It would have been a whole lot easier to go work for them and not have to start the whole business thing, but they're not taking less for 20%. And that's not something I was willing to negotiate with. Because you also should not be giving 20% of your money that you earned through your athletic ability to somebody else. But on top of taxes.
Yeah, who's gonna take it first?
Any other questions? I know that was really long. I just wanna, if you wanna leave, please leave. If you're sick of me listening to me, I handed you all a agreement from the Big Ten. This is a short agreement. This is why I picked it. I think it's just really good to put basically what we just talked about into play. JJ, did you get one? Okay, so when I talk about termination clauses, I want you all to go to page 2. No. Okay, go to page 2, and can anyone tell me what the second bullet point means? Who's on the hook for what, how you terminate? I would love it if it would be from one of our awesome high school students and not your parents.
So we're looking on the restrictions or turn?
Turn.
Modification.
Page 2. Turn.
And the second bullet.
Yes, ma'am. JJ.
She wants you to read the second bullet and you'll find anything that's wrong. So read the second bullet on the term and see what that's wrong.
No, in your head. Second and third bullet. I want to see if you can catch this little thing you're doing.
Buyout.
Okay, I'm gonna give everyone 5 more minutes. I'm a slow reader, but then you're my first guy.
Either part of it,
So that's actually a good thing. We want either party to be able to terminate for cause. That's great. That's a great point, though. Either part. So for the school to terminate for cause, that means you had to have screwed up. Okay, that means you did something. You did something bad. So if they can terminate for cause, that's good. That doesn't mean they can terminate because you didn't play up to their standards. All right. So that's good. That's a great point. But it's good also, you can terminate if you want to transfer. Keep going.
$50,000.
Bad part is the morality part.
Anything other than the morality clause. So that's all of those other bullets.
So, I don't know if anyone noticed, did anyone get to read it and like,
I think I got it.
okay, go for it, smart.
Being it's fair to make such reimbursements to companies shall prevent any entity from using entity from using part of NIL for commercial or non-commercial purposes.
You know something else that we weren't even, yes, got you, read it again one more time for everybody.
Fair to make such reimbursements to companies shall prevent any other entity from using parties NIL for commercial or non-commercial purposes.
Good, that's really good. I'm gonna come back to that, but first, what I wanted y'all to notice, at the bottom of page 2, okay, either party can terminate, that's a good thing. If they can terminate for cause, right? If they can just terminate, bad thing. You don't want them to just be able to terminate on any given day for any reason. It needs to be for cause. Now, if you keep, so that's good, that's actually not bad, but that's tricky. In the event party terminates this agreement prior to the expiration term, party, that's you all, that was defined on the first page, your party, shall reimburse the company for the initial payment of 25%. Now, if you, I didn't ask you to do this, if you go and look on the last page, your initial payment was $25,000. So if you terminate this agreement, you owe the collective of school $25,000. Now, it gets better. So that's the buyout cost. That's what we were talking about, right? That's the buyout cost. This is the kicker, okay? If this agreement, this is the third bullet. If this agreement is terminated by company, that's collective, for any reasons other than those described in the morality clause, the parties shall be entitled to keep your payments. Congratulations, you get to keep all the money you earned. However, the party shall not be entitled to any payments. So what does that mean? If you don't get anything. So they're saying they're using their word, they're using their sword to say, hey, guess what? We're so nice. If we end this contract with you, you get to keep your $25,000. We don't owe you anything. If you end it with us, you have to give us $25,000. Now, this kid that signed this, don't expose him, and I'm not going to say his name. Both of his parents are teachers. Okay.
Why you hire people?
That's why I'm not doing it.
Okay, so that's just a subtle little switch of the word. You have a buyout, we don't owe any. All right. Some of them are way worse than this, but there's no better, like, I need real world examples to really understand what we've been dragging on forever about, okay? This is a perfect example.
No, I was just going to make it kind of sound like workers' comp, when, when you get fired, they don't have to pay the bill.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. So if you look on the last page, this is kind of interesting how it's that. So they're giving payments on given days. So the way they structured it is your 25% of your contract is $80,000. That's your 25%. So they're holding that against you. If you make it past the spring term and spring ball and you're still there, as of May 31st, you get your next huge payment. So that's a way to kind of protect the school. Okay, if this kid is gonna hop in the portal again and leave us, we're not gonna owe him that big chunk of shit. Okay. So.
Can I ask you this, because I actually talked to an agent the other day, he called me out the blue. And he was saying the example that he gave me was when it comes to it's time to make your money. He said some of them were putting in that we'll pay you on big day. He said, but if that person jumps into the draft, then they can say, well, you're not an amateur anymore, you're into the NFL draft, so now we don't have to pay you.
Yes. So if this is your NIL, students better have a clause in their contract of you saying that your relationship automatically ends before you jump in the draft. And guess what? Whoever your NIL agent is doesn't mean you have to go there and leave the NFL. You can hire somebody else. Okay. It's illegal to have a contract for 8 years of 4 years of college and 4 years of pro.
Say that one more time.
So I, as a NIL agent, I can't hand JJ an 8-year contract because there's supposed to be a distinction between college and professional. Does that make sense? So you're only their NIL agent for college. Now, can they use you when they go pro? Absolutely. But that's an NCAA regulation that still exists. That if those lines are smeared and they're trying to say you're a professional agent, you could lose your NCAA eligibility. And agents can use it contractually to get out of their deals with you. And the schools are using it. Yes. Yeah. And then this is just, okay, that's a huge one. We saw the morality clause at the bottom of the third bullet point. So if they get out of the morality clause later in the contract, that says they can get out of it instantly. Another little fun snippet, just look at the grant of rights on the first page. The party grants to the company the exclusive right to use the party's name, signature, so you just gave the school exclusive right to your NIL. And then if you look at the third bullet point, you have to get written permission to use your own name, image, and likeness for whatever contract or whatever endorsement you give.
So that you get a part of that endorsement, just stay on your name.
Yeah.
So what about where it says the company should have no financial right or interest in any?
So yeah, they can't take a cut into the
Yeah.
contract. Yeah. Yeah. And most schools don't, they don't mess around with that. That goes into some NCAA regulations that they don't want to get in trouble with. Agents on the other hand, another thing, but yeah. There's literally, if you go line by line through this, I'm gonna respect your all's time. I'm gonna say for a while after, if anybody has any questions or has any other things that they want to go through, you can just really quickly go to page 4 of the morality clause. Very, 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 very broad. I also love that this particular school didn't number their pages, which is a little sketchy. You want to show what your from coaches' experiences. Some university cancel money, lie in a page between 3 and 4. So you always want your pages numbered. That's just a little snippet, just remember. So then they can't claim that a page was there that wasn't actually there. But if you look at this morality clause, commit is criminal, commit, not convicted, commit any criminal or other act involving moral turpitude, illegal drugs, felonious activities. Stephon Diggs would have had his money pulled if they wanted to. Put the school of public disrepute, contempt, scandal, ridicule, which shocks or offends the community. You can put a lot of stuff into that bucket.
Where are you based?
I'm in Mobile now, actually. Yeah, I was worked in Washington State. He's here on my husband. He's a strength coach at top of it. Yeah.
What you coach?
I'm almost. Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry. You just started sounding my voice a little. Etched out.
I think my first thing he mentioned, you're like, what did you eat today? I'm like, ooh, I hope you didn't tell him on the food.
Oh, we are here. It's
If it's like more one-on-one, that's cool too over here, so.
I definitely want to thank you for coming. Like I said, I greatly appreciate it because some things I didn't know So I figured too, it may be some things that parents didn't know as well. And I always want them to be knowledgeable about what to do. And, thank you again, and I'm quite sure that they appreciate it as well, so. I'm gonna hang around in case you have any questions, and then we'll go from there.
Out of here.